The story begins in a tundra, more specifically inside a snow-covered cave. A completely wounded man, missing half of his left arm, was being interrogated by two hooded men who demanded to know where the ancient relic was. Even in this state, the man only asked if they would reveal this information if they were him. One of them was furious, while the other decided that they should hire the squad first. Using a magic communication crystal, he confirmed the coordinates with the rest of the group and commented that the man was really persistent for still being conscious in the cold, even without an arm. They asked why the Phantom of the North was after that relic. They said that they had already suffered a lot because of him, and that now they were going to have fun torturing him. A short-haired man approached with a sword and said that they would only stop when he begged for mercy or revealed the truth. It was then that it became clear that this man had lost not just one arm, but both. The two enemies decided to toss a coin to see who would start the torture. At that moment, the man bit his own arm to fit it back into his body and reconnect it. It was revealed that he was the first failed awakened of House Draker, called Zeke Draker. He was born into one of the great dragon slayer families, but with a body incapable of using aura, and was rejected and expelled for failing to awaken. Treated like dirt ever since, he did everything he could to survive and become stronger. He remembered a phrase someone once said, "If all you seek is strength, in the end there will be nothing left." Zeke thought that this kind of phrase is only uttered by those who already have power. The coin fell into the hooded man's hand, but before he could decide anything, his head was lopped off by Zeke himself. Zeke then launched himself at the other enemy, breaking his blade in half with a single blow and finishing him off with a deep cut to the chest. He thought that, in that world, the weak would always be trampled by the strong. That was the only truth of the place. Just then, Zeke heard a noise coming from the cave and quickly reconnected the second arm. Soon the entire platoon emerged, and everyone was shocked to see that he had managed to reattach his arms. They commented that he was an irregular, but that he would still die if they cut off his head. Thus began a great confrontation between him and all the invaders, even though he was seriously wounded. With swords stuck in his back and spitting blood, heck, you see, Zeke managed to emerge victorious from that fight. He was on the brink of death, and even without achieving his revenge, he managed to steal the Emperor's ancient relic. As much as that wasn't enough, it was still an achievement. He apologized to Alicia, and the moment a drop of her blood fell on the relic, she reacted with an explosion of power. A system was activated, telling him that his willpower had awakened that power. He explained that the soul of the Elder Dragon enters the body of those who persist and asked if he agreed with this. Zeke thought he was hallucinating and hearing voices because he was dying, so he mentally told himself to do whatever he wanted. The system accepted this as a positive response and activated an irreversible promise. Within 5 seconds, he was sent back in time. Now Zeke was in the body of a child trying to process everything that had happened. He thought it was really hard to believe, but he still felt the pain of the knives in his back. Even so, the place was familiar. It was the Draker's domestic training institution, the cradle of the Dragon Slayers. It is explained that the Draker family is one of the 3 great transcendent families. They descend from the hero, Terracon Draker, the man who saved the continent by slaying the evil dragon, Bahamut, during the war 1,000 years ago. Because of this, his descendants founded House Draker. Perhaps because of this direct inheritance, all members of this bloodline were born with the blessing of the aura. With it, they were able to awaken easily and become successful knights. Except for Zeke, everything seemed calm, until suddenly he heard something and thought it might have been something in his head. But he heard the system talking to him again, saying that the soul of the awakened one had been confirmed and was now 100% aligned with the Elder Dragon, informing him that he had gained authority over part of the system. Zeke wondered if this was a consequence of the artifact having been activated. So he opened his status window and saw that his name was Zeke Draker, with the healer class, a rare class, and with the title of the one who has received the blessing of the Elder Dragon. He had the skills, dark and keen senses, resilient mind, and vigor recovery, in addition to the standard skills and draconic skills he could still unlock. Zeke realized that he could navigate these magical windows with ease, and also noticed that he had received the class skills, remembering something his master had once told him, explaining that people in the ancient world were categorized into classes, and that each class had a specialization called a class skill. Since he was a healer, his natural skill was healing, and Zeke thought that after he had awakened, his master had trained him to the limit. But thanks to the healing skill, he had never died. According to the system window, even at that age, he already possessed the healing ability, so he decided to test whether the window was correct. It was explained that, in his past life, he only became a healer around the age of 20. At that moment, he concentrated his power and realized that there was something different about his body, because even though he was so young, he already had his redder. He then understood that, although he had returned to the past with a child's body and no training, he still retained all his memories and abilities, which gave him an immense advantage. Before he could do anything, he knew he had to understand everything that was at his disposal. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door, asking if they could come in, and saying that it was pointless pretending they weren't there, as they already knew he was. Zeke thought he hadn't read everything yet, and didn't know how to hide the status windows, so he got desperate. The door opened, and in walked his butler, Decker, who asked if Zeke was ready yet, and what he was thinking. Zeke asked ready for what, while thinking that Decker apparently wasn't looking at the system windows. Decker asked if he was being serious, and Zeke remembered how scary the butler was in his youth, and that even though he had the mind of a 30-year-old, he couldn't get rid of that deep-rooted fear until the system automatically activated the resilient mind skill, and the fear disappeared. The resilient mind skill meant that the user wasn't easily shaken, and Zeke found it very convenient that it activated on its own. Decker went on to say that he had warned him the day before about an important event, and asked if Zeke was paying attention, to which he replied yes. But then he remembered something, and asked if the butler was talking about the assessment called Pancratio. It was explained that all Drakers went through a training system called the Cradle, which started at the age of 7 and lasted for 5 years, where the children went through rigorous basic training. The instructors evaluated the new students each year through fencing competitions, and also the Pancratio, which was a fight with no rules. The Pancratio combatants were chosen by the instructors, but on some occasions the students themselves chose their opponents, as long as there was mutual consent. As there were no rules, there were cases in which people were seriously injured or even died. But this competition was what determined the class in which the students would be placed within the academy, so it wasn't as if these children had the option of not taking part. Later in an arena, an instructor stood in front of all the students and said that, as everyone knew, it was Pancratio Day, and everyone was aware that this was the last part of the assessment. Everyone agreed. That main instructor was called Panmark, and he asked everyone to get ready for the fight to begin. It seemed that there were quite a few people in the place, except that while Zeke was there, everyone was talking behind his back, saying that he was a waste, a piece of trash, even though he was from the main Draker lineage. Later, the fights finally began, and when Panmark started the first duel, one of the students went in first, but the other dodged easily, landed a hook on his opponent, and knocked him down with a single blow. Zeke thought the fight was already decided, because that's what happens when someone doesn't have a defensive posture. The winner of the fight was Aaron, and Zeke remembered that he used to be afraid of him when he was younger, but now he saw that these guys were nothing compared to him. Elsewhere in the audience, there was someone who was ready to put an end to Zeke's race, and later, it was his turn to face that boy. Zeke recognized his opponent as Leon, who began by teasing him, saying that he had come back and didn't seem to have learned anything in the last year, ordering Zeke to beg for his life if he wanted to get out alive. Zeke thought that every year his opponent was Leon, and last time he had actually asked for mercy. He was convinced that Leon did something behind the curtains to ensure that this always happened, and he wondered how someone so despicable could be his cousin. Zeke remembered that, in his past life, he had never had the chance to meet his 4 direct line brothers. But he had more than a dozen cousins who loved to humiliate him. Leon said that Zeke should at least show respect, since he had the courage to go back that year. Or maybe it was just because he was dumb and didn't learn his lesson. At that moment, Zeke activated his resilient mind ability and thought that he wouldn't fall for these cheap insults. When Leon called him inferior, Zeke replied that it wouldn't be nice if he kept calling him that. Leon asked what he would do, and at that moment, Zeke activated his critical hit ability, unleashing a direct hook that knocked Leon down instantly. This ability dealt double damage, and Leon fell screaming with a lot of blood coming out of his face. Zeke thought he just wanted to hit him, but the skill had automatically activated again. The instructor, startled, asked what he was doing, since he had attacked before the fight had even started. Zeke replied that in a war, there is no counting, and whoever attacks first has the advantage. The instructor was terrified by the bloodlust he felt emanating from him, but Leon, still bleeding, said he was fine and ready for combat, promising not to give in to that piece of garbage. Zeke replied that Leon was really stubborn and wouldn't learn his lesson. The instructor officially started the fight, and Leon went in blindly. At first, he realized that Zeke's blows didn't have any impact, and thought that by maintaining a defensive posture, he wasn't a threat. However, when Zeke counterattacked, Leon dodged and found the move predictable. He grabbed Zeke and tried to knock him down, saying he was going to finish him off right then and there, only for Zeke to land a knee right in his face, completely disarming him. Leon wondered what had happened, and even the instructor was incredulous. He thought that when Leon grabbed Zeke's leg, the fight was already decided, but the knee was precise. It took his opponent's breath away, and he dropped his guard, and the blow was completely neutralized. The instructor was impressed by the precision of a 12-year-old boy, and began to wonder if this was really the Zeke he knew. Leon, realizing that he wouldn't be able to beat him this way, tried to create some distance, but Zeke kicked his leg and knocked him down. When Leon tried to get up to land a direct punch on Zeke's face, he thought he could control his strength this time and activated his heightened senses ability, which temporarily increased all his senses and instincts. With that, he easily dodged the attack and, with more control over his body, grabbed Leon's arm and threw him hard against the ground, cracking the arena with the impact and raising a large cloud of dust. To finish, Zeke used a precise thrust, a blow that hit Leon directly in the weak spot, breaking one of his ribs. Zeke said that even an idiot like Leon should learn that lesson, so he started punching him in the face incessantly, leaving both the instructor and the audience completely terrified by the scene. And Zeke said that now Leon would really learn, leaving him there, all bloody on the floor of the arena. Zeke said that his head felt a lot lighter after sweating a bit, and that he could now clearly recognize every person there, telling everyone to stop staring at him and come to him if they had anything to say. And that's the end of this chapter. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like, comment which part hyped you the most, and subscribe for the next episode. See you in the next upload.